funny and generous, and curt, aloof, and hard-hearted in the next. Never have I met a man possessed of a greater abundance of social gifts, intelligence, looks, manners, style, humor, and never have I met a man with less aptitude for or interest in maintaining real relationships. But to understand Johnny's complexity, one must first understand his artistry and the esteem in which he was held. This is not an easy thing to do. If we were to talk about a great movie actor, it would be simpler. His transformation into his character would be evident. The range of behavior he depicts would be obvious. The subtlety and nuance of the human experience that he illustrates would grab you by the throat. But what Johnny seemed to do was more commonplace. He came out and told a few jokes. He then kidded with Ed McMahon and Doc Severinsen, played a game with the audience or performed in a ridiculous skit, and then made chit-chat with celebrities. And it was the same thing every night. What was so damn special about that? Perhaps I had begun to take him for granted, in the way New Yorkers can pass the Empire State Building every day without ever looking up. Then, one night early in 1979, I recognized why Johnny was a star like no other. As it happened, I needed to be amidst a galaxy of stars in order to appreciate him. By the start of 1979, I had been his lawyer for nearly 1 decade and had been watching him on television for almost 2. I obviously knew he was a star. NBC paid him like a star, audiences applauded him like a star, and sponsors adored his stellar ratings. But I guess I had become used to him. It's true, I was more in awe of him when we first met in 1970, but that had a lot to do with the vast difference in our places in the world. I was a young attorney of no particular accomplishment, and he was the well-established host of the dominant program in the late-night time slot. But Johnny seldom played the star around me. Whenever he called me, he'd begin every conversation by saying, "Hey, you got a minute?" And we evolved a productive, low-key business relationship in which he always had the final say, but in which he almost always accepted my recommendations. We also had a personal relationship. We saw each other almost every day and commiserated about personal matters. I was privy to his finances, to the ups and downs of his marriages, to his concerns about his children, to all his interests and his moods, and I traveled with him every few weeks when he went on the road to play nightclubs. Maybe because I saw him at such close range, I lost sight of his immensity. But on that night in 1979, a night that fell about halfway through our long association, and one that followed many high points in our relationship, I finally experienced a moment in which I recognized his true stature. And what's funny is that for most of the evening, I was in no mood to appreciate anything good about Johnny. "Where is he, Henry?" Ginny Mancini demanded when she greeted me at her door. "You told me he would be here by now." And indeed I had. Here, being the beautiful Holmby Hills house of Ginny and Henry Mancini. It was an hour after the start time that appeared on the invitation celebrating yet another of the seemingly endless honors and awards Mancini had received during his peerless career, the most prominent of which, his 20 Grammys and 3 at that point Oscars, displayed on shelves around a large-screen TV built into a wall unit in the den. Several hours before, Johnny had phoned Ginny to confirm that he'd be attending and to ask that I be allowed to join him. It was a somewhat odd request, this being a strictly A-list event, but every Hollywood hostess has at one time or another had to accommodate a guest with special needs far odder and potentially more explosive than the presence of his business lawyer. Frankly, I was surprised Johnny wasn't there already. He'd been famous for his punctuality since his early days in radio, and undoubtedly before. It's impossible to imagine Ruth Carson tolerating tardiness in her son. To say Johnny was late was almost like saying Old Faithful was late. Somebody should alert the media. But late he was, and the clock ticked on. The white-jacketed waiters from Chasen's had long ago rolled out the chili and the hobo steak, and soon Ginny would have to call for dessert. Like most of the wives in her set,